Hey kids, Miss Jen from Kids Connection here, and I actually have a guest with me today. Would you like to tell them your name?
Elijah.
Well, he's trying to spell his name, but his name is Elijah, and Elijah is my son. So he's with us today because we just celebrated Mother's Day on Sunday, and during our lesson, we talked about honoring our moms and the special women in our lives. So I thought it would be cool if you guys got to see my son and me as a mom while we read today. And the Bible story that I picked is actually about a mom. So we're going to look at a woman named Hannah, and we're going to see how she became a mom. And then we're also going to see what happened with her son. So let's go ahead and read. Elkanah, who lived near Jerusalem, had 2 wives. One of them had children, but the other, called Hannah, did not. Poor Hannah! She longed for a baby and tried her best to wait patiently for God to bless her. But one day she could bear it no more. She fell to her knees in the temple and poured out her feelings to God. "Please do not forget me," she sobbed. "If you give me a son, I promise he will serve you all of his life." So did you guys catch that? Hannah is on her knees and she's praying and she's asking God to bless her with a son. And she tells God that if he gives her a son, she promises that he's going to serve him. All right, so let's keep reading and see what happens. Hannah didn't know that a priest called Eli was watching her. "Whatever is the matter?" he asked her. "Are you ill?" "No," replied Hannah. "I am sad because I do not have a child of my own." When Eli heard this, he was filled with pity. "May God give you the child you long for," he said kindly. Some time later, God answered Hannah's prayers, and she had a baby boy. "I shall call our son Samuel," she told her husband, which means God hears. So God came through and gave her that special little gift that she had asked him for, and as a result, she called him Samuel because she was recognizing that God had heard and had answered her prayers. So let's see if she keeps good on her promise. Do you remember the promise that she made? Yep, that her son would serve God all the days of his life, right? So let's see if she did that. When Samuel was old enough, Hannah kept her promise to God and took her child to see the priest, Eli. "This is the son God gave me," she told him. "Now I am giving him back to God. Please, will you take him and look after him?" So, from that day onwards, Samuel lived in the temple, serving God, helping Eli, and learning to become a priest. God gave Hannah more children, but she never stopped loving or missing her firstborn child, Samuel. She thought about him all the time. Every year she made him new clothes and took them to the temple, and every time that Hannah visited her son, she saw that he had grown, not only in size, but also in wisdom. How proud she was! She knew that God had chosen Samuel to be his special servant. So did Hannah follow through on her promise? Yeah, right? Hannah took Samuel to the temple and had Eli teach him all about God. All right, so we're going to read just a little further to see what happens with Samuel, because I think something really cool happens in the story, and I want to talk to you guys about it. You ready? Okay. The priest Eli had 2 sons who also served in the temple, but they did not love or respect God as Samuel did, and often behaved very badly. Luckily, Eli could rely on Samuel. One night, when Samuel was still young, he was sleeping in his usual place in the temple, when he was woken by the sound of someone calling his name. "Eli must need me," thought Samuel, leaping out of bed and going to the old man. Eli was surprised to see him. "I didn't call you, child. Go back to bed." So Samuel lay back down and closed his eyes. Careful, I can't see. So Samuel lay back down and closed his eyes. Just as he was drifting off, he heard the voice once more. "Samuel," it called. Once again, Samuel got up and ran to Eli. But again, Eli shook his head. "I didn't call," he said. "You must be dreaming." Samuel returned to his bed and tried to go to sleep, but he heard the voice calling a third time. He knew he wasn't dreaming, so he went to Eli once again. This time, the old man realized that something important was happening. I think God is calling to you, he told the boy. Go back to bed now, but if you hear him calling your name again, tell the Lord that you are ready to listen. I believe he has a message for you. Samuel went back to bed, and the voice called his name again. I'm listening, Lord, cried the boy. Then God spoke to Samuel. He explained how angry he was with Eli's sons. I will no longer allow them to serve in the temple, he announced. They are not fit to be priests. In the morning, Samuel was afraid to tell Eli what God had said, but the old man told him to be brave and truthful. So Samuel repeated God's message. You were right to tell me, said Eli. God knows what is best for all of us, even if it is not what we want to hear. So this is kind of a unique story, right? It sounds kind of crazy because this boy, right, who's living with Eli in the temple hears this voice and he thinks that it's Eli calling to him, but Eli says, no, it's not me, it's not me. You must be dreaming. And as they kind of progress through the story, we find out that Eli wasn't calling Samuel, but Samuel was hearing a voice, and the voice that he was hearing was the voice of God. And I know we've talked before, Elijah's in agreement. I know we've talked before about how God can talk to us. And I know we've said that usually it's not something that you can actually hear with your ears. Normally it's going to be maybe a feeling that you feel in your heart or something that you think in your mind. But in our story today, Samuel was actually hearing the voice of God. So I just wanted to read that to you guys today to kind of encourage you with a few things. The first thing being, if you're praying for something and you feel like God hasn't quite answered yet, maybe like Hannah was praying for a son, we saw that God fulfilled his promise, right? And that he did give her a son. She prayed for it. So if you guys are praying for something, just keep praying and keep asking God. But then the second thing I want to encourage you, again, like we've talked about, prayer isn't just a one-way conversation, right? It's a two-way conversation. So when we talk, we also need to pause and listen because God might be trying to speak something to you. And it might come as something you can hear, like it did for Samuel in today's story, or it might be a feeling that you have. But just, I want you to be sensitive and to make sure that you're allowing time to pause and listen because God does want to speak to you. So just want to encourage you, keep praying this week. Pray with mom and dad. And if you feel like you hear God telling you something or you think you feel something that might be God, talk to mom and dad about it. I'm sure they'd love to help you. All right. Have a great week, guys, and we will see you soon.
See you soon.